Hello, everyone. I'm Lindsay Reiser. We continue to follow breaking news from Wilmington, Delaware, where a jury has found the president's son, Hunter Biden, guilty on all three charges in his federal gun trial. The charges against the president's son include falsifying statements in order to obtain a firearm and firearm possession by an unlawful drug user or addict. He could face up to 25 years in prison for his crimes. CBS News congressional correspondent Scott McFarland has been covering this trial for us. He's outside the courthouse in Wilmington, Delaware, along with all the people you see on your screen now. We have team coverage on all of this. Erica Brown is also next to him. Erica, let's talk to you first because the verdict came down. You ran out. What can you tell us about that moment?
Yeah, so as the verdict came down, as jurors were actually filing into the courtroom first, Hunter Biden was standing at the defense table with both of his attorneys, his arms folded in front of him, his hands crossed. And then the courtroom deputy is the one who actually delivered the verdict, not the jury foreperson, not another member of the jury. So as that verdict was delivered, he was seated at the defense table, looking straight ahead at the courtroom deputy as he read off guilty, guilty, guilty for each count. He exhibited very little emotion. We could not tell what he was thinking based on his facial expressions. He was relatively stoic, but he did acknowledge both of his attorneys on each of his sides, Abby Lowell, David Holansky, hugging them both. And then as the jury exited the courtroom, it was a very brief process. As they exited the courtroom, he embraced and hugged his wife, Melissa Cohen Biden, at the end.
Scott McFarland, by the numbers, we had 6 days of trial, 3 hours roughly of closing arguments, 3 hours of deliberation. You also, of course, covered a preview of this trial for CBS News before it began, and you spoke to former prosecutor Tom Dupree, and he said this was going to be a case in which some of the most personal, most private details in one of the darkest times of Hunter Biden's life would be laid to bear. And we did see that. What is your characterization of the trial and now his conviction?
Yeah, the sense we got going in is this could be a humiliating trial for Hunter Biden. We may have underestimated the family pain and humiliation that this 6-day trial unearthed and exposed. The witnesses for the prosecution, in addition to Hunter Biden's own words from the audio version of his memoirs that was played for the jury, in which he describes his descent into crack cocaine addiction, included his ex-wife, who talked about finding that crack pipe in 2015 in their Washington, D.C. home. It involved his former girlfriend from California who said he frequently took drugs in or near her presence. And then the widow of his late brother, Beau Biden, Hallie Biden, a woman with whom Hunter Biden had a romantic relationship during the pivotal moments in time for this case in October 2018, describing his drug use and the broken relationships, the fractures because of his drug use. All of this was so personal, so cutting, so visceral. That was laid out for people to watch and see and hear about. And in the front row throughout were members of his family, his current wife. For most of this trial, the First Lady of the United States. Everything happened here was an extended humiliation for Hunter Biden that was capped off by being convicted of 3 felony counts.
Scott and Erica, thank you. I want to bring in former prosecutor Rebecca Roiphe. Rebecca, not to quote Tom Dupree again, but he had said in the CBS News special report immediately after this verdict that this case was a prosecutor's dream. Do you agree?
I think the case was really strong. I think one thing that we really need to focus on here is while this is a conviction of Hunter Biden and, as Scott was saying, humiliation, it is also a vindication of the criminal justice system here in America. This is a criminal justice system under a president who is a Democrat with an attorney general who has sworn that the Department of Justice is independent. It has brought several indictments against the former president, but it also brought this case through to a conviction, and that is significant here. The contrast between Biden's conduct and what he has said about his son, expressing love, but also faith in the outcome, versus the former president, who not only in his own indictments has repeatedly cast a shadow over the criminal justice system and delegitimized it, but also during the prosecutions of allies during his administration, he, in many ways appeared publicly to delegitimize those cases, called them rigged. So we have some real contrasts, I think, and at the bottom of line of this, we have a criminal justice system that is intact and is functioning.
Well, Rebecca, hang out for us because you just teed up CBS News political correspondent Caitlin Huey-Burns, who's at the White House. Caitlin, we have a statement from President Joe Biden. What did he say?
Yes, Lindsay, we're just getting the statement from the White House. He said, as I said last week, I am the president, but I am also a dad. Jill and I love our son, and we are so proud of the man he is today. So many families who have loved ones battle addiction understand the feeling of pride, seeing someone you love come out on the other side and being so strong and resilient in recovery. And this part is notable, Lindsay. He said, as I also said last week, I will accept the outcome of this case and will continue to respect the judicial process as Hunter considers an appeal. He goes on to say that he and his wife, the First Lady Jill Biden, will always be there for their son and the rest of the family, and nothing will ever change that. So as we were saying before this statement came out, after the Trump verdict, he expressed confidence in and support of the U.S. justice system. Today, maintaining that confidence in and support of the U.S. justice system as his own son was found guilty on gun charges. I should also note, Lindsay, that while we have this paper statement from the president, we are also expected to see him later today in just a couple of hours. He's expected to address the Everytown gun safety event here in Washington to talk about his administration's efforts to curb gun violence. Remember, gun reform has been a big priority and announced achievement of this administration, especially the effort to strengthen background checks. So that is notable that he is speaking on that subject today as his son is now found guilty on those gun charges.
Caitlin Huey-Burns, thank you so much. I want to bring in now Robert Legary, CBS News Justice Department reporter. Robert, if you can, bring us back to the impetus of this case, the special counsel, why we're here in the first place.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks for having me. So we'll have to go back to the Trump administration, actually, when U.S. Attorney for Delaware, David Weiss, who's now the special counsel, launched the investigation into the president's son. David Weiss was kept on by Merrick Garland at the Justice Department as U.S. Attorney in Delaware to continue this investigation. Usually, when there is a transition in presidents, what happens is the U.S. attorneys in the offices throughout the country are then replaced by those who are picked by the elected president. Here in Delaware, President Biden and Merrick Garland opted to keep David Weiss in that role. The investigation continued, and Merrick Garland subsequently appointed David Weiss special counsel at Weiss's request. Now, the special counsel and the president's son's legal team reached a tentative deal last year where he would enter into a deferred prosecution agreement on the gun charge that he was now convicted of and then plead guilty to tax charges out in California. What happened today was the result of those talks breaking down, in which it seemed as though Weiss's prosecutors and the defense team disagreed on whether or not this would end all investigations into Hunter Biden at all, or this would just resolve the issues that were before them. The judge who oversaw this case, Judge Noreika, was the one who said that it seemed like the parties disagreed on the outlines of the plea deal and sent them back to the drawing board. Charges were then filed in Delaware and later in California. And this is not the only federal prosecution that Weiss is bringing against the president's son. Hunter also faces charges in California, which he's accused of reneging on and not paying over $1 million in taxes.
Do we expect to hear from anyone at the DOJ today, either AG Merrick Garland or special counsel?
So the Attorney General appointed the special counsel to overview this and to oversee this investigation. He operates independently of the Attorney General. The Justice Department is referring us to the special counsel, and we expect to potentially hear something from Weiss and his team in the coming hours.
Okay. Thank you so much, Rob Legary.
Thanks.
Let's bring in CBS News legal contributor and Loyola Law professor Jessica Levinson. Jessica, can we expect an appeal? What will that look like?
We can expect an appeal. That's not unusual. Every criminal defendant virtually says, I will appeal. And I think one of the most interesting topics on appeal or aspects of the appeal will be the idea that this charge is actually not constitutional under the Second Amendment. This is an argument that Hunter Biden previously unsuccessfully brought up, where he said, I'm looking at the charge, I'm looking at the federal law that says somebody who's a known drug user cannot possess a gun. That's what he's charged under, essentially. And he's saying that would fly in the face of the current conservative Supreme Court's reading of the Second Amendment. This, of course, has irony attached to it because his father is a Democratic president who's pushing for more restrictive gun control, meaning allowing states and the federal government and localities to implement more gun control measures. We heard from Caitlin Huey Burns that the former president is going to be attending an event tonight meant to support people who want to see more gun control measures, the Everytown event. And his son's appeal, I think, in at least part, will rely on this current Supreme Court's conservative reading of the Second Amendment, which says you have to look at the history and tradition of our country in order to uphold any gun control restrictions. Now, I don't know if this will be successful, but I think it's the most interesting argument on appeal.
And Jessica, last question to you quickly. We don't have a firm sentencing date, 120 days estimated. We heard Tom Dupree tell Nora that he does expect there to be jail time in this, but on the lower end, maybe 1 or 2 years. What are your thoughts?
The same. I think that makes all the sense in the world. I do not think that we are going to see a quarter century. That's the maximum here, 25 years. I don't think the prosecution is going to ask for that, particularly given how this case was brought, who Hunter Biden is. And I don't mean the president's son. I mean a first-time offender. And I don't think that this is a case that cries out for the maximum. This is, however, a case where I think you absolutely could see something on the range of 1 to 2 years. And that is part of the reason why Hunter Biden really wanted that plea deal to stay together. We just heard Robert Laguerre talk about why that plea deal fell apart. And this is the somewhat predictable consequence of that.
Jessica Levinson, we so appreciate you. Thank you. And let's go ahead and end where we began with Scott McFarland and Erica Brown. We've been talking about this for about 10 minutes. Final thoughts to you, Scott, and then Erica.
Not only did we have history with the first ever criminal conviction of a sitting president's son, we had played out for the world here an ugly family story of addiction and what it does to families, even close-knit families. The tragedy that impacted Hunter Biden that led to this criminal case and this criminal conviction is a type of tragedy shared by so many Americans. The pains of addiction. And Erica, you watched it in the courtroom. You saw it on the faces of people there.
That's right. And even though this was played out in public for the jurors and also for the media to report, there were still members of Hunter Biden's family that every day packed that first courtroom row right behind him, sitting shoulder to shoulder, supporting him during those breaks when the jury wasn't in the room, hugging him, embracing him, showing their support every day with their presence. So much so because they were sitting in a direct line of view for jurors, federal prosecutors at the very beginning of their closing statements, reminding jurors that the people sitting in the gallery were not evidence, that they should not take that into consideration when they are deliberating. But First Lady Jill Biden there almost every day. Hunter Biden's sister, Ashley Biden, Valerie Biden Owens, James Biden, his wife, Melissa Cohen Biden, all seated there in a show of support.
Scott McFarland, Erica Brown, Robert Laguerre, Jessica Levinson, Rebecca Boyfie, and Caitlin Huey Burns. Thank you so much for our special coverage here. We do appreciate it.